Thank you for joining us today. Ian and I are excited to have the opportunity to share with you our perspectives on the value of mobile web apps for engaging students in learning. First, some background. I teach chemistry and Ian teaches English at Albion College. It's a 4-year residential liberal arts college located in Michigan. We have an enrollment of about 1,500 students, so it's a small school and our students expect personal attention.
We began thinking about mobile apps and ebooks for a simple reason. Our students are increasingly showing up with mobile devices and asking to use ebooks. The data here should come as no surprise, but that doesn't make them less dramatic. Gadget ownership is rising overall, and tablet and smartphone ownership is rising faster than anything else. For those of us who have owned a smartphone for years, it may be surprising how rapidly ownership of these devices has grown in the past 2 years, thanks in part to aggressive marketing and pricing by almost every cell phone company. For the first time this year, smartphone ownership has surpassed ownership of basic phones. At this point, we can therefore say that ownership of these devices is the norm.
Of course, we know that smartphones, and perhaps to a lesser extent tablet devices, are very popular with our 18 to 20-year-old student population. But this graphic also shows us that for many groups, especially those traditionally on the other side of the digital divide, smartphones become a primary way that people access the internet. According to data, young adults, minorities, and those with no college experience, and also those with lower household income levels, they're all more likely to say that their phone is their main source of internet access. With national calls to strengthen the learning of all students, especially in the areas of science and math, there's potential for engaging those groups traditionally underrepresented in these fields. Our local environment reflects the national environment. In an informal survey of our students, nearly all of them owned smartphones or other mobile devices. A nearly equal distribution of Droid and Apple devices exists among our students, and 33% of our students report owning multiple mobile devices.
We have all heard and often experienced the way that mobile devices have changed people's communication with each other and their relationship with knowledge. If this is true, they must necessarily offer an opportunity to change education.
Chris Anderson and Michael Wolff argue that the World Wide Web is in decline and that apps are in ascendance. From their 2010 Wired article, they write, "You wake up and you check your email on your bedside iPad, and that's one app. During breakfast, you browse Facebook, Twitter, and New York Times, and there's 3 more apps. On the way to the office, you listen to a podcast on your smartphone, another app," and so on and so forth. You get the picture. You've essentially spent the entire day on the internet, but not on the web. And this is an important shift in how we access information. The digital world has been moved from the wide open web to semi-closed platforms that use the internet. Certainly, apps are in ascendance. As a result, a different vision of a way people access information, learn, and even amuse themselves is emerging, and so it's certain to change education.
As the media is fond of pointing out, mobile devices can prompt obsessive behavior. But while we might lament this behavior in our teenage children, as educators we believe we can take advantage of it. Maybe we can even rely on it to motivate deep learning.
With the increased use of mobile devices and the high cost of textbooks, more of our students are purchasing and using e-textbooks. Many of these e-texts are simply a PDF version of the book that contains links to definitions or other sections of the text. Inkling is a company that is working on developing smart textbooks. They've gone farther to include quiz material and even animations. As shown here from one of their biochemistry texts, you can click on a link and obtain a rotatable molecular model. It's pretty, it's interactive, but will students make the implicit connections about molecular bonding and attraction? That is, are they thinking while they're interacting with this material? Our expectation is that this is not the case, and we've turned to creating web apps to do this for us. With support from the Great Lakes Colleges Association as part of its New Directions initiative that was made possible by a grant from the Andrew Mellon Foundation, Ian and I developed several web apps for use in studying chemistry and poetry. We decided to develop web apps instead of native apps because of the diversity of devices that our students owned. Our programming is in HTML5 and JavaScript, and using Adobe Dreamweaver and jQuery Mobile, these web apps can be turned into a hybrid app or a native app with a web view. My goal was to focus on a single learning objective. In this case, I wanted my students to understand what a strong acid or base is and to recognize them when they see them. I chose this topic because traditionally this is one of the hardest sections, and it's largely because the students do not take the time to learn this concept until the exam, which is 3 weeks after the initial concept is introduced. Every other concept in this 3-week section builds on this first concept. In the design, I provided multiple ways for students to learn the material, all the while keeping in mind that our students want everything to be easy, fast, and fun. This is the navigation page of the acid-base web app. As you'll see, it's mobile friendly. It adjusts to the screen size of the device, but it can also be accessed from a laptop or desktop computer. This is simply a tool to augment their learning. It's another piece of support. My students have me, they have their text, they have their online homework, and they also have this web app to help them. Acid-base has 4 distinct sections. It has a background information section that provides a very concise description of the theory associated with strong acids and strong bases. It has 2 short reference segments that list the strong acids and strong bases. There are 2 quizzes that ask students to identify the strong acids and strong bases, as well as to understand the difference between the concepts of concentration and strength, and in the process gives them real-time feedback. Finally, there's a game. It's the fun part. It's a part that requires students to quickly tap on or click the strong acids and strong bases. There are 5 levels that increase with difficulty, and the game ends if a weak acid or base is selected. A high score list is kept, and that provides additional motivation for students to improve. My students had access to this web app beginning in the fall of 2011, and in an initial assessment of this program, my students report perceiving the value of this app to be equivalent to their perceived value of their online homework program. Generally, my students have been very receptive to this project. They liked that they can study chemistry anywhere. They enjoy the game, and they appreciate that we acknowledge their obsession with technology. Though there were several who were less interested, and often that lack of interest correlated to a lack of ownership of a smartphone. In the spring semester, our introductory chemistry students were quizzed randomly to determine whether or not they could list the 6 strong acids from memory. Only one section of the course had access to the alpha version of this acid-base web app. The quiz scores listed on this graphic are reported as either perfect, and that's when the students listed all 6 acids correctly, or the grade is reported as an evidence of recognition, and that column includes the students who had a perfect score, plus those students whose responses were very nearly perfect but had a minor error in a formula or a name. The preliminary data suggests that the app use may affect student learning. Section A, who had access to the acid-base web app, did learn their strong acids sooner than Section B. Maybe this was because of increased motivation to study, or perhaps even sustained periods of study. After the final exam, I surveyed my students to learn about their use of the acid-base web app. 50% said that they accessed the web app within a couple days of learning of its availability, and 40% said they used the web app several times. This chart includes the students' self-reported time spent using the acid-base web app. At least 60% report using it for 5 minutes or longer. They also used it in different ways. Some reported using it as a reference, others as a review, Still others use the quizzes and others the game. Overall, though, the assessment results suggest that the app had a positive impact on student learning.
In the humanities, the issues are slightly different. For one thing, e-textbooks for the field are much harder to find than they are in the sciences. In particular, literary teaching anthologies are rarely available. Where texts are available, as in this history text from Inkling, they do contain engaging illustrations and some basic textual tools, including the ability to highlight and make limited, usually invisible, notes. But they don't really include the kind of robust tools for textual study that are needed, particularly for literary texts. The oft-touted ability to look up words, for example, is less useful for the historical and lexical precision required for literary texts. I approached this issue by trying to think through my approach to reading and teaching a short poem like Shakespeare's Sonnet 138. I aimed to create an experience that would feel like a mobile app rather than a glorified PDF. Above all, I wanted to facilitate student interaction with the text in ways that went beyond highlighting or making cryptic notes. I also wanted an app that was specifically crafted for my students with their abilities and the learning outcomes for the class in mind. I wanted to avoid the generic model. Finally, I wanted to include as many as possible kinds of material, from audio to video, and I wanted to include a way for students to share their comments about specific words and lines. The result is a web app that works on any smartphone or tablet. As you can see here, it has the look and feel of an app and includes things like video content. Because textual study works best in a larger frame, I really concentrated on the tablet window. A simple prompt on the home screen allows students to personalize their version and to include the name of their class so they see comments only made by fellow students in a class. The heart of the app involves the textual study itself. The notes a student takes are recorded by line at the bottom of the screen so they can see them while they're looking at the poem at the same time. When they choose a particular word or phrase, they get both a word gloss and a question to help prompt their note-taking. This is the place where the editing can be most customized to the pedagogy of the course. And if they want to see what others have said about the same question, they can do that too. I also wanted students to be able to think about the rhyme and meter of the poem, something that print or PDF editions have real trouble with, so I included a version in which they could take notes on these issues, while in some cases hearing variant readings of a particular line. I was happy to see in students' reactions to the app so many comments about the way it affected their reading habits and their approach to the poem. They were also eager to offer suggestions for improving it, and occasionally they noted some problems about the way different mobile web browsers rendered the code. We envision several different paths for the future. Of course, we'll continue working on our code, exploring as many different ways of engaging students in the study of literature and of chemistry as possible. We'd also like to begin incorporating our web apps into available ebook formats, such as Apple's iBook and the new Kindle Format 8. Our preliminary work here has been less than satisfactory, since these formats don't always have a consistent or even effective way to render HTML5 or JavaScript. Finally, we'd like to encourage publishers to think more carefully about the way that the mobile platform can help students learn. Too many publishers are simply porting existing print material into the mobile platform with a few multimedia features and tools added. Thank you so much for viewing our little video, and please feel free to stop by our booth at the conference, and we would be happy to speak with you.